This episode of The Answer is Yes Baja Sessions is brought to you by Baja Bound Insurance Services. Driving to Mexico? You can buy and print out your Mexican auto insurance policy online in minutes with their easy-to-use website. They also have great travel information to help you plan your trip south of the border. Visit bajabound.com.
Hello, this is Ryan Thomas, and you're listening to the Baja Sessions. Over the last 3 decades, I've lived, worked, and played from the top to the tip of the majestic peninsula of Baja California. And because of this, I've met some incredibly interesting people with equally interesting stories. And today on the Baja Sessions, we're going to chat with one of them.
Rat Sult, so stoked to have you on the show today, man. How you doing?
Good, buddy. How you doing, Ryan?
I am. I'm doing as good as you can be doing, knowing that you're going to Baja for the next week. That's kind of my gig next week. It's yours as well, and for the most part, I think it means everything's awesome and good. But there's always, there's a lot of work to be done down there. So you're working on your car right now, I know. So it takes work to go to Baja and enjoy it, I guess is the basic way to say it, right?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, just getting ready, getting the Baja ready. I'd like to take a little side trip, hopefully on the way back Monday. But, yeah, getting ready for the 52nd Baja 1000. And, yeah, super stoked. We got almost 40 trophy trucks and just a great field going down there this year.
So, listeners, if you can't tell, I got another guest on that's somehow connected to the world of motorsports, specifically off-road racing in the desert, or even more specifically Baja. But we got Rat Sult here, and we are going to talk about the race that's coming up next week and aspects of that in the motorsports world. But let's back it up here. I learned this about you after I started hanging around at the start-finish line with you, and I think we actually did a joint announcing thing at some point back a few years. I think I was in San Felipe, maybe. But anyways.
No, yeah.
Am I wrong there, or did it go back further than that?
No, it was actually, it was Rosarito, the Rosarito Desert Challenge.
What it was,
2016.
Okay,
yeah.
That's right.
That was my first full year announcing with SCORE.
Right. Okay, so we're going to dive into that in a little bit here, but let's back up. You are a downhill luge. You're a medalist in the X Games, right?
Yeah, I got a couple gold medals in Street Luge and pretty much raced all over the world racing Street Luge, and I got into it doing downhill skateboarding first and kind of picked up the Street Luge later, but yeah, a few decorations from the X Games and lots of fun times there for sure.
Which it's a crack up, man, because there's you may not know this about me. I wasn't like super expert vert skater, but that's what I did when I was in junior high and early part of high school. So Del Mar Skate Ranch, and I didn't realize we had the skateboarding connection. That's kind of cool. I'm assuming you also did some other than just straight downhill, or maybe you didn't.
No, for sure. Yeah, I had a half pipe. I lived out kind of in the sticks when I was racing motocross. I had a track, but I also built a super solid ramp. And the hardest part was keeping everybody from jumping the fence and going in there. I'd come home, there's like 10 people skating my ramp. You're just like, what? All right, let's just skate.
I remember we used to drag a chain across them and put a padlock and lock them so you couldn't ride them.
Yeah, I ended up doing that when we would go to the races just so someone didn't get hurt. But I didn't live in a normal neighborhood, where you could go skate and find the local school to go hit stuff. So yeah, I had to build my own. So yeah, that was kind of my where I started it, right into vert actually.
Well, okay, so then eventually you're going downhill, and those guys, listeners, again, if you don't know what we're talking about here, downhill skateboarding is tell me some of the speeds. I mean, you get going pretty fast, don't you?
Yeah, I've been over 80 on a luge and over 60 standing up. That's pretty gnarly. But the last couple of years, they actually have a world record race in Canada, and they got a hill. These guys are going over 100 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh!
So new records are always being set, but it's cool to see that. But yeah, pretty much traveled all over too. Got lucky enough to race in Europe, France, Africa, all over the place, and the French Alps are always pretty cool. But it's not the high speeds normally. It's all about the turns and how you could, make your turns. And for the most part,
it's interesting. I know watching it online or on TV, you're scrubbing speed by kind of more or less going into a drift a lot of the times. But then that's on a skateboard, but on a luge you don't do that, right?
Yeah, that's why I had the van sponsor. I would wear out seriously in one day of racing. You'd wear out almost to your socks sometimes.
Wow.
Usually, if you're sponsored, you change your shoes for the main. But Yeah, you wear out your shoes, and that's your brakes. You're basically, it's just gravity, and your brakes are your feet, and you do some scrubbing, throw it a little sideways, but you want to, on luge, it's a little bit more about just carrying that speed.
Right. So the G-forces are way gnarlier, I would assume, right?
Not really G-forces, not like a sprint car or anything, but yeah, it's definitely pretty gnarly. Especially, it's one thing to race when we have hay bales and we're all out there, we're all geared up. But the gnarly stuff was out just training, riding, going free riding hills with cars and people pulling out in front of you,
All right,
cops,
all
kinds of crazy stuff.
So, I mean, I'm sure this question gets asked all the time. You have to have had some pretty gnarly wrecks, or maybe not. I mean, maybe you don't keep going when you wreck.
Oh yeah, I've had some gnarly wrecks, but for sure, I'm definitely a lot worse. We've had a lot of people, lose their lives in the sport. It's a core sport for sure. But I've been lucky enough. I've just broken bones and dislocated shoulders.
So the
maybe
fatalities are a reality. I wasn't sure about that, but that is the case, huh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean it's an art. And once again, most of those are all people out free riding. Going off a cliff or just I mean, It's a core sport. It's like racing Baja, on a different level where it's just you're out there and anything could happen at any time.
Yeah, I don't know. Something about roll cages and seat belts. I don't see the correlation really, man. That's way gnarlier. Well, so yeah, you've got a background on skateboards or four wheels on your feet, going downhill, adrenaline junkie. And like we mentioned to the listeners, you and I met at a SCORE International Baja Desert race. Oddly enough, doing announcing together. So connect us here. I mean, I'm asking these questions because I'm genuinely curious and I don't know the answer. We've met and we're buddies, but I don't know these answers. So, how in the world do you go from X Games gold medalist downhill luge guy to announcing, I mean, basically the pinnacle of the sport in off-road racing, announcing for the SCORE International Desert Series? Connect the dots there for us.
Yeah, the luge is where I really got in front of the camera and started hosting SCORE. Got my presence on the camera and to see what I could do on that side. But I've always ripped my dad. He's raced desert since before I was born. I grew up going down there racing with him, pitting, chasing, till I was old enough to start racing. 2007, I was on a support factory ride, and we got third in points in Open Pro and SCORE. Soloed the 1,000 in 2012 in a car. So, I mean, I've got a bunch of other things, too. Those are my two favorites. And got second place, by the way. And so I've always been a racer, always gone to the desert, Glamis desert, raced motocross. I raced moto forever and downhill mountain bike. So just kind of graduated over, I guess. And I would just love going down there. And right after I kind of was not really finished my career, I was always trying, want to still race, and I'm still not done. But I just started talking to Roger Norman and said, yeah, I'd love to come down there. I do camera work, and it happened 2016 and just been rocking it since. And just having the knowledge of it and the love for the sport, not only just the knowledge, but having the love for the sport, the background growing up. I mean, I was in diapers going down to San Felipe with my dad racing, sitting in the shop as he's working on his race cars and bikes and stuff. So just kind of a natural progression to something I really love. And there's nothing I like better than basically making people pumped up. And I know what people want to feel, and whether you're first or last place in Baja, sometimes I'll wait till after we close the time. People coming across, everybody's a winner to finish Baja. And it just, that's just what I love doing, is basically making people feel good, and a sport I love.
Rat, I got to tell you, so first time I met you down there in 2016, you were all of what you just described and then some. I mean, when Rat Sult is in front of you, you know it. And there was a lot to take in there. And I got to tell you, in the very beginning, I was like, man, is this guy for real? But just listening to you talk and now having been around you for the last couple of years, you are for real, dude. Like your excitement and enthusiasm for the sport and your love of it and your knowledge of it, you're 100% right, man. And you are the perfect guy for this job. It's bitching to see you up on the stage. And man, I'm telling you, you go for hours. I mean, are you resting and preparing right now? Because, being in a trophy truck for however many hours, 18 hours, and nobody really does that anymore. They split it up, a bunch of pansies these days. But, dude, you're on the stage nonstop. How do you do that?
Yeah, it's pretty gnarly. Yeah, like the longest one was probably the 50th anniversary, including getting on a plane and everything. But it was 50 hours straight that, you go from being on the mic, rush to Tijuana, get on a plane, fly down to La Paz, go wash my face, didn't even get to change my shirt back, and the bikes are coming across in 30 minutes. But you know what? It's like you said, I'm an adrenaline junkie, and I get off on just doing things that are hardcore and being a part of it, and just hearing the stories too. I mean, that's part of it, and not only do I blow these people up, each and every racer we have with SCORE are just, they're straight up badass. I mean, they're doing what they love, and I love hearing the stories, and it just keeps the energy up and just kind of keeps me going. And sometimes I'll be sitting there, it's not always unicorns and rainbows. I'll be sitting there sometimes when it's freezing cold, for the 1,000. I remember specifically down that 50th was the coldest down there on the water in La Paz. Just freezing cold, just almost miserable, and then all of a sudden somebody comes across the line. The energy's up. I just feed off of it. And that's just an adrenaline rush to me in itself. So keeps me going.
All right, I'm going to ask the other dumb, and I can't even believe I'm asking this because people ask me this all the time. Have you ever had a real job?
Yeah, I've had a real job. That's a crazy. Yeah, I used to do plumbing back in the day and sold plumbing supplies and rented scissor lifts. And my dad, growing up, when I was racing moto and getting to travel around, when he supported me doing that, and we had a scissor lift company, so I did that till early 20s. And honestly, you know what? I'm just chasing my love. I'm doing off-road nights now. I'm sure we'll talk about here in a few. And just, this is a couple years solid. I've been just announcing, doing what I love, and putting on my events. So it took a lot of work to get here, and working for other guys, and sometimes sitting, making that money for the other guy. But life's too short, man. You got to do what you love and go for it, and just be happy at what you're doing. So it's finally paying off, so I'm pretty stoked.
Yeah, you know what? I'm stoked to hear that. I'm curious. I got a couple more questions for you, and I told you we'd keep this to 30 minutes because you got stuff to do. But here's another dumb one, and I'm sure nobody's ever asked it for you. Rat. Where'd it come from? Why are you? Is that what your mom and dad named you?
Not my mom so much, but my old man, definitely. Like I said, he was a drag racer, off-roader, in the paratroopers, just an all-around badass. Probably the first, what you would call, action sports athlete. Just did anything he could to have fun. And when I was born, he rode a Hodaka Super Rat. So he named me Super Rat. So it was Super Rat before I came out. I had my own cape. My mom was an artist. She kind of got into it, but she still calls me my middle name, which is Steven. And and I came out and I was Rat. That was it, man. I had a big wheel and we were rocking. I never slowed down. Had an 80 when I was 8 years old. Started racing and just pretty much never looked back. Just in the moto, I've done so much, but racing down in Baja, and the Baja on top of everything. Luger's cool, but the people, the community, just how, like you said, how epic the sport is, how treacherous it is, and these vehicles and guys get back. It's just, it's the pinnacle. So just stoked to be back on that.
Well, so is it hard to be up on that stage sometime, wishing you were actually in the cars? I got to believe it is. I mean, it's hard for me to be there sometimes doing that.
For sure, especially in between races. I'm like, man, I'm trying to work on a UTV program for maybe some stateside stuff for next year, but when I'm there, you know what? I just focus on what I'm doing and don't really think about that too much. As stoked as I am for everybody else and hearing their stories, I'm kind of in a whole different realm, and just I try to put myself where they're at and try to get the best story out of them we can. And so I don't really think about it at the races, but yeah, in between for sure. I'm a racer. I'm definitely not done. And if anybody's listening, stateside, I'll drive anything, trophy truck. It's on.
Shameless plug. I love it.
Yeah, man, it's in your veins for sure. Like I still mountain bike a lot. I ride some moto. I got my Baja. We go down there in my Tahoe down to Baja and do some tours. But
so you
definitely love to get back into some racing.
You've named your Tahoe the Baja?
It's the Baja, yeah.
I like that. That's good. I've actually got a friend who's got a dog named Baja. It's a short little like corgi, and so they call it Baja.
Oh, that's cool. Oh, this one's got long legs, yeah.
Well, hey,
But
are you married? Do you have a family?
I do, yeah. I got an amazing